Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon. Teddi Mellencamp reveals why she's staying quiet about divorce from Edwin Arroyev. Former The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star Teddi Mellencamp stunned her followers earlier this month when she took to her social media channels to announce her divorce from Edwin Arroyev. The announcement was a huge surprise at the time, but then again, it's rare for viewers to get insight into her personal life nowadays because she's no longer a part of the Bravo hit. Teddi previously said that her priority was her children and that she wanted to maintain their privacy and well-being throughout this new chapter. The 43-year-old admitted that rumors would be rampant then, so she only went public to minimize the speculation. During this week's new episode of her podcast, Two Teas in a Pod, Teddi conceded that she would only speak about what I shared on social media, and I just am trying. I don't even know how to say this eloquently. But I am just trying my hardest to make sure that my kids' privacy is protected right now, she doubled down. Another big thing for her is that she didn't want rumors to blow up on social media. Teddi clears up social media statement about divorce. For anybody that's curious why I would have posted a statement, it's because when your name is recognizable and you file in the court system, it becomes public, Teddi reasoned. The podcast host is also speaking out about those who may call her a hypocrite because she's staying quiet about her divorce. Teddi has famously discussed fellow reality TV stars in the Bravo universe with her podcast co-host, Tamra Judge, so she knows that people will have questions. When it does come to this and children, I think there's room to give it grace, she admitted. It's a little bit different than what we're getting into on the podcast. Teddi is best known for her 3-season run on RHOBH, during which she made fast friends with Kyle Richards and Dorit Kemsley. Since then, she has made guest appearances on the show and even appeared on a recent episode of The Real Housewives of Orange County. Teddi should move to RHOC. We think she'd be a good fit on RHOC, and believe she should take over for Alexis Bellino in a friend role for season 19 when the show returns to filming next month. Teddi did have a role on the 3rd season of Celebrity Big Brother and had the potential to be one of the better players, but was sadly evicted first. There is also the potential for Teddi to appear in RHOBA season 14, which premieres later this month. In a dimly lit room in Beverly Hills, the flicker of candlelight caught the edges of Teddi Mellencamp's face as she sat down for an interview with a respected magazine. She knew what they'd be asking. She could sense it in the tense quiet, in the sympathetic gaze of the journalist sitting across from her. For weeks, fans and followers had been speculating about her silence regarding her marriage to Edwin Arroyev. Teddi, once known for her outspoken personality and candidness, had surprised everyone by staying uncharacteristically quiet as rumors swirled around her marriage. Let's address the elephant in the room, the interviewer began gently. Your marriage, the divorce rumors, everyone's been wondering why you've chosen not to speak out. You're known for being honest, and your silence has left people wondering. Teddi leaned back in her chair, folding her hands on her lap as she took a deep breath. Her silence had been difficult, especially when her instinct was always to speak openly. Her life as a real housewife was one she had shared without filters, giving audiences a view into both her triumphs and struggles. But this situation was different, and she knew it. She took a deep breath, then spoke slowly, choosing her words with an uncharacteristic care. There's a lot to unpack, she began softly, a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. I used to think that honesty meant saying everything that was on my mind, putting it all out there. But over the years I've come to understand that there are moments when silence can be just as powerful as words. This time it's not just about me. Edwin is involved, and so are our children. It's a family matter, and while I'm used to putting my life on display, they didn't sign up for this kind of exposure. A hint of emotion tugged at the corner of her voice, but she kept herself composed. Teddi remembered the many nights she and Edwin had spent talking about the impact their life in the public eye had on their relationship. Edwin had always been more reserved, his preference for privacy something Teddi had struggled to understand in her early days on reality TV. Yet, over time, she began to respect it, to understand that he viewed fame as a double-edged sword. You know, she continued, being on reality TV can skew your perspective. Suddenly, you feel like everything has to be talked about, exposed, explained. It becomes this strange cycle where if you aren't sharing something, people assume the worst. But in reality, it's still your life, and that life doesn't have to be dissected and analyzed just because people are curious. She paused, letting that thought sink in. Her face softened as she talked about her children, about wanting to shield them from the scrutiny that so often came with her position. They're young, and they deserve to see their parents making the best choices for them without feeling like they're part of a storyline. I know how brutal things can get online, and I don't want them to look back on this time and feel like they were pulled into a public narrative they didn't ask for. Teddi's mind drifted to her days on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, to the episodes where her openness had often backfired. Fans had seen her as confrontational, sometimes blunt to a fault, and she'd endured her share of criticism for it. But even as her accountability coach persona had ruffled feathers, she believed in speaking her truth. Now, ironically, her silence was part of her truth. The interviewer listened carefully, nodding, aware that her reticence held depths that Teddi couldn't fully express. Would you say that this experience has changed how you view your public persona? Teddi smiled, a faint trace of humor flashing across her face. Absolutely. When I first got into reality TV, I thought, this is great. I can be myself. I can inspire others to be accountable and open. But as time went on, I realized that my truth became entertainment for others, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's made me more protective of the parts of my life that aren't meant for public consumption. The journalist noticed a framed photo nearby, Teddi and Edwin on a beach, taken years earlier, back when they were newly married and hadn't yet imagined a life in the spotlight. The two looked carefree, their smiles wide, full of hope and possibilities. Teddi followed the gaze to the photo, and for a moment, her expression softened. That's what I remember, she said quietly, as though speaking more to herself than anyone else. Before the show, before the chaos, there was just us. And that's something I want to protect, no matter what happens. Whether we make it through this or we don't, I don't want it to be fodder for gossip. I want our kids to know that their parents were and are human, that we're doing our best. The interviewer pressed gently, so does that mean there's a chance for reconciliation? Teddi hesitated. She'd asked herself that question 1,000 times, and the answer wasn't one she could easily articulate. Maybe, she admitted softly, or maybe not. But either way, I know that my silence on this isn't about hiding or being ashamed. It's about giving us a moment to figure things out without the added pressure of everyone's opinions. Sometimes the most accountable thing you can do is step back and allow yourself some space. The room fell quiet for a moment, the only sound the ticking of a clock on the wall. The journalist recognized the wisdom in her words, sensing that this was the side of Teddi that often got overlooked, the thoughtful, introspective woman who, beyond the confrontations and drama, was searching for peace. Thank you for sharing this, the interviewer said finally. I think people will understand you in a new way after hearing your perspective. Teddi nodded, feeling an unfamiliar sense of calm wash over her. She knew her decision wouldn't sit well with everyone, that there would be those who felt entitled to every detail. But she was ready to protect this part of her life, no matter the backlash. As the interview wrapped up, Teddi glanced once more at the photo, a bittersweet smile tugging at her lips. Life had changed in ways she hadn't expected, but for the first time she felt okay with holding back, with giving herself permission to keep a part of her story untold. Maybe, she mused, accountability didn't always mean spilling every truth. Sometimes it was about honoring the parts of her life that mattered most and knowing when to draw a line.